Hello and welcome to My Loudest Thoughts. I want to be your number one tinfoil hat certified conspiracy guy. This is a channel where I put on a tinfoil hat, talk about a bunch of crazy nonsense. Some of it's probably real, some of it's probably bullshit, but I don't care because I'm wearing a tinfoil hat and we're going to have fun with it. Alright, so today we are going to talk about the moon. First off, is the moon an extraterrestrial construction? Secondly, is it natural but not from our solar system? Number 3, is the moon a space station? And of course, my absolute favorite, is the moon the ark from which humans arrived to Earth on? Okay, so why would any of these 4 theories even exist? Why? Well, first off, because the moon's placement in orbit around the Earth is absolutely perfect with its size and its mass to allow for the tides, perfect eclipses, to stabilize the tilt of the Earth's axis, to allow for seasons, which basically allows for all life on Earth to exist, at least in the form that it does, and therefore possibly, Earth is the only planet that intelligent species has ever developed on. Now, I think that last bit is just absolutely ridiculous. However, it did do all of these things, and we know that intelligent life is on Earth, and so far have not proven it anywhere else, although I absolutely believe that there are super intelligent aliens that far surpass us. However, when we start looking at strange things on the moon, we quickly come to some strangeness. So strange, in fact, that Erwin Shapiro from the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics once said the best possible explanation for the moon is observational error. The moon does not exist. Okay? So, now, why would he say such a thing? I'm sure he believes the moon exists. Well, that's because the moon is just so fucking weird to be where it is, and it's so perfect for us little measly human beings that it just doesn't make sense. It would make more sense that every human being on Earth was suffering from a mass hallucination, and that's what the moon actually was a mass hallucination. However, we know that's not true because we put people there in 1969. In fact, in November 20th of 1969, Apollo 12 deliberately crashed the ascent stage of the lunar module into the moon, and NASA said that the moon rang like a bell for over an hour. An hour! Now, how did they do this? Well, during Apollo 12, I think it was, they put seismographs on the moon so that they could record earthquakes, or moonquakes as they call them. And they did find out that the moon has some moonquakes, right? They're very, very few. They're very, very weak in comparison to Earth, but they do exist. But not nearly enough to explain boulder tracks on the moon. Now, maybe it explains some, but it does not explain ones like depicted here or depicted here. In the first one, you can see that a boulder went over a fucking hill, okay? It went right over the top of a hill. In this one, you can see it went right over the edge of a crater, and it just didn't fall into the crater for some reason. Now, that just defies all logic to me. Now, there's something else strange going on with the moon, and that is something called translunar phenomenon. Now, this has been recorded for over 100 years, well over 100 years. I think it dates all the way back to the 15th century. But anyway, the point is that this has been reported and recorded for hundreds of years. People have been seeing white and red lights all over the moon. Just quick little flashes most of the time. Sometimes they're sustained for a few minutes, sometimes even hours. But why I think this is so strange, because those have explanations, is some of these have been recorded on video moving across the surface at incredible rates of speed. Now, why do I say the first version has an explanation? Well, if they're stationary, especially if they're short-lived, they could be outgassing of the moon and or asteroid impacts. If they are moving across the surface, though, that quickly is just bullshit. That quickly just stops making all sense altogether. Therefore, translunar phenomenon is evidence, possibly, that the moon is a space station. or that it was the ark that humans arrived on and there are still people there now or something there now. Okay? It also would explain it being a extraterrestrial construction. It does not explain how it would be a natural forming body outside of our solar system, but I'll be honest. I think this one is bullshit. Okay? I do. I just don't think it's real. So we'll rip that off of the board. The other thing that is very, very strange about the moon is that its birth, the birth of the moon, seems to coincide perfectly with the loss of Mars's atmosphere, which makes me think that possibly people on Mars existed, they were very advanced, and they realized that their atmosphere was being stripped away. And over the next so many millions of years, they constructed the moon and towed it into Earth's gravity well, put it in orbit around the Earth to stabilize its seasons and make it habitable for them. Therefore, we came into existence. Or, and I like this even more, a civilization long ago, long before science would ever be able to find any evidence, because we're talking billions of years, not just millions, billions, okay? We're talking before the dinosaurs, possibly. Okay, now something else that's very, very, very strange about the moon is that the deepest crater around the moon is 1,500 miles across and only 5 miles deep. 5 miles deep, 1,500 miles across, okay? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? That means that this motherfucker is 300 times wider than it is deep. 300 times wider. Okay, now that sounds a lot like a rock chip in paint to me, right? If you take a car, right, and you throw a rock at it, you can chip the paint sometimes 2 and 3 inches across while not denting the metal underneath whatsoever, which means that you have a chip that is very, very wide and only a few millimeters deep. Maybe it's a couple inches wide, but it's only a few millimeters deep. And so a body guy can take care of that quite quickly. Well, maybe the moon is constructed out of something incredibly, incredibly hard, and the regolith that we see on top is essentially its paint. I believe because that regolith was used to insulate the inhabitants of the inside of the moon from the radiation, from the cold, from all that bullshit out there in space, because space is fucking scary. Okay? And now, this guy right here. So the picture of this guy, the guy in the picture, he had said that he believed that the moon of Phobos, of Mars, was actually hollow and possibly an extraterrestrial construction. Now, there were a couple of guys, I think from Soviet Russia, who said, who came up with this theory. I'm not trying to pronounce it, but anyway, something or another spaceship conjecture. Now, basically what they did was they took his theory as a jumping off point, and they said that, hey, the moon is a spaceship that was created by extraterrestrials, and they birthed human beings into existence with this spaceship moon that they created. They put it in orbit. It was our ark. Okay? Human beings came to Earth on the moon. That's why the moon was constructed in the first place, and therefore the moon serves its purpose still to this day, billions of years later, and I believe for a civilization that has gone so far, so long ago, that we will never ever find evidence of them whatsoever. But hold on. Very long time ago now, on Mars, they found a face. Okay, you can look it up. It's called the face of Mars. I should have printed a picture of it too. It's pretty cool. But anyway, the face of Mars was a face-looking thing on Mars, and soon after it was found, the scientists said, oh, it's nothing but a crater. However, soon after that discovery, the United States military decided to conduct some missile testing on Mars and that location. So, even if it was there and it wasn't just a crater, well, it fucking is now. Okay? Because there's one thing that America's really good at, and that's making craters and unaliving people. So, anyway, moving on. So, what we have here is a bunch of really strange oddities and a guy wearing a tinfoil hat who thinks that the moon was the ark for humanity to get to Earth and to stabilize Earth for human inhabitants. And the inhabitants of the moon originally, billions of years ago, probably looked nothing like humans, but it serves its purpose today to allow for an intelligent species to have a world-dominating presence on the Earth. Now, it is possible that the moon is nothing more than a space station. Maybe they're just monitoring the Earth. Maybe they're just monitoring human beings, and that's where all the UFOs come from. Which, once again, translunar phenomenon is likely just UFO activity on the moon, which gives credence to both of these theories, in my personal opinion. And of course, it is an extraterrestrial construction because, well, I can't explain how it got there, and I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, so that's good enough for me. Now, there is someone I would like to call out specifically, and that is because I think he would actually have a good time with this video, okay? And that guy is Mini Minuteman. Okay, so Milo, if you somehow watch this, but tear it apart, please tear it apart, man. I fucking love your videos. I hate some of the things that you have to say, but for the most part, I love your videos. And remember, I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, so you shouldn't take me that seriously. But here's some fun for you. The moon may be extraterrestrial construction, possibly created simply to allow for intelligent life on Earth.